Welcome to the Touch MBA Admissions Podcast. Do you need help figuring out which schools to apply to or how to get into the world's top MBA programs? Hey, you're not alone. Join thousands of others on this podcast and on our site, touchmba.com, as they seek the admissions edge. And now, here's your host, Darren Joe.
Hi friends, and welcome to the Touch MBA podcast. This is Darren here. This week we had a great conversation with Miss Nadia Ahrazem from the London Business School MBA program. And one of her biggest tips to applicants was that before they apply, they really think about whether the schools they are applying to are the right fit for them, and to really go beyond the rankings and see what each school does particularly well. And here at Touch MBA, our goal is to make this school selection process easier and to help you find the right fit MBA programs based on your profile, your goals, and your needs. So if you just go over to touchmba.com, tell us about yourself, and we'll give you a personalized shortlist of MBA programs based on our extensive knowledge of the top B schools and our admissions expertise. So this way you save time, you get a jump start on your school research process, and you even can hear back from some schools who may be interested in your profile and want to speak with you directly. All this is for free. Go head over to touchmba.com, get yourself signed up, and we look forward to meeting you. And now for this week's episode with the London Business School MBA program. All right, welcome everyone to the Touch MBA podcast. This is your host, Darren, and I am so excited to have our next guest on the show, Miss Nadia Ahrazem, who is the MBA Recruitment and Admissions Manager for London Business School's MBA program. And I'm sure, as you all know, the London Business School MBA program has been top ranked, top 5 by the Financial Times, number 1 by Bloomberg Business Week in 2012. So it's a top ranked program, but I really hope over the course of this podcast that we really get to understand what makes London Business School unique and look behind those great rankings and really get to know the school very well. And it's great to have Nadia on the show. She's worked for some big names such as McKinsey and Goldman Sachs before coming to London Business School. Welcome to the show, Nadia.
Thank you very much, Darren. Thank you. It's good to be here.
So Nadia, what makes London Business School different from the other top MBA programs in the world?
That's a very good question. And you just mentioned the rankings, the brands, definitely something that sets us apart from everyone else. But I think it's really important to look beyond just the rankings. And I think you mentioned it, it's really getting to the heart and the soul of the school and the business school. And it really depends on your own personal takeaways and what you want from a business school. But I think something that I think that makes us stand out and that makes us unique here at London Business School is a few things, really. First of all, we are incredibly international. And not many schools can even come close to where we are. We are incredibly international. So the MBA program is made up of around 66 different nationalities. And these are students who come to us from all over the world. And it makes for a really, really culturally rich and dynamic and diverse classroom. And that's really important because business is global now. And senior managers, CEOs, business leaders need to understand how business is conducted internationally. And it's one of the traits that are really important in today's business world. So I think that's really, really important, knowing how business is conducted across the world and in different countries, and being able to leverage those experiences across the classroom with your fellow classmates. The other thing that I think makes us unique is the fact that we offer our students a really flexible MBA. So some people might want to finish their MBA in the soonest time possible. Perhaps you want to accelerate your career. Perhaps you're a sponsored candidate. Perhaps you want to really get stuck into your career as soon as possible and you want to really fast track your MBA, you can finish in 15 months. For others, and there's quite a large group out there who want to perhaps transition or switch career, switch industry or job function, we give you the flexibility to really extend your MBA experience as much as possible, up to 2 years, 21 months. And the MBA is a great opportunity to really experiment, try out various different internships in various different industries or job functions, really use those networking opportunities and travel and explore the world and make the most of your 2 years. The third thing that I think makes us unique, and it's one of the things that I really enjoy about working at London Business School, it's the fact that there's a real collaborative nature here at the school. It's very much a family atmosphere. And people really do step out of their way to help each other out. It's not just friendly, but people do this on a professional level to really help each other be successful in the job market, both during their MBA and after graduation. It's not uncommon to sort of pick up the phone as an alumnus or alumna, 10 to 15 years after you graduate and speak to someone on the other side of the world who's connected to London Business School. And it's not unusual for that person to then, dedicate, an hour or a day of their time to help you out. So I think that's something that makes London Business School quite special. And we also offer our students, we have a non-grade disclosure policy here at the school, which is quite interesting. People usually breathe a sigh of relief, but it means that we don't disclose your grades to not only your fellow classmates, but also future employers. And what this allows you to do is to really step outside of your comfort zone and perhaps try those classes that you're interested in, but you may not have, pursued because of, fear of failure. So it really allows you to really step outside your comfort zone and really challenge yourself in the classroom. So yeah, it's these three things: international, flexibility, and collaborativeness, that I think really sets us apart from most schools.
And how many of your students choose the 15-month option versus the 21-month option or the 18-month option?
The answer to that is very, very few students choose to do that. You might get a handful of students who finish in 15 months. That's typically because they arrive here and they discover so many opportunities. They're having so much fun that they really just want to extend their MBA experience as much as possible. But on the other hand, we do get students who perhaps have landed their dream job, or some of our sponsored students have that sort of time constraint, in which case they need to get back to their employers. But most people tend to go for the 18 or 21-month option.
Nadia, are there any new exciting developments with the London Business School MBA this year?
There have been some exciting new developments. We have just launched our global business experiences, which take place in the second year of your MBA. These are trips to international destinations for one entire week with a group of around 80 or 90 other students and 2 members of faculty. And usually these trips are linked up to a particular subject area. And you'd either go to Boston and to New York, or Johannesburg, Mumbai, Hong Kong, or Istanbul in Turkey. The idea is that you really step out of your comfort zone, as you've never been or studied in one of these locations before. The idea is that you learn about how business is conducted, and you learn about the business environment. So our students just came back from Johannesburg, and the subject area was emerging markets. And they went out there with our emerging markets and entrepreneurship faculty. And they met with small micro entrepreneurs in a township called Alex, people who had started their own small businesses, such as hairdressers, clothes makers, little shops. And in groups, they helped these small businesses increase their profitability. And the idea was really that the students challenged some of the preconceptions they had about these particular countries and the business environment, And they also learned about the impact these small entrepreneurs had on the larger macro economy. So these are trips you would get involved with, and they're a great way to really step out of London, step out of your comfort zone, and step out into a different business environment.
And I can imagine that your students are so excited to go on these trips, just to travel to these countries and be with 80 other classmates and have a great time in these cities and as well.
Absolutely. And most of our students have never been to these countries before. So culturally, yes, it was an amazing experience. Our students were very excited about going there.
I saw that London Business School's tagline was London Experience, World Impact. And on that note, I was wondering why candidates should get their MBA degree in London and the UK.
That's a good question. We are really, really fortunate to be based in London. It's a fantastic city. I'm slightly biased because I was born here and I grew up here. But London, much like London Business School, is very international in itself. So you're walking down the street and you would, encounter 10 to different languages and nationalities in the space of around 5 minutes. It's the gateway to Europe. You can get on a flight and be anywhere in Europe within the space of 2 hours. You can conduct business with the East and the West in the same day. But you can't overlook the fact that it is the world's financial capital. The square mile is within 20 minutes of campus. And the government is also doing a lot at the moment in terms of supporting entrepreneurs. You can come into London and continue to work here on a tier 1, which supports anyone with a start of a business idea. So it's fantastic for entrepreneurs. But one of the things we do particularly well in is helping students with their career goals. And we're very fortunate to be situated so close to many of the world's headquarters, HQs, which lie on our doorstep. So fantastic for recruiting purposes and meeting with HR departments and recruiters. You did mention our tagline, the fact that we do have an impact globally and internationally. So yes, we are situated in London, but we have an incredible international reach. A lot of our students do stay on here in London to work, but we have over 30,000 alumni all over the world as well, including campuses in Dubai and a huge exchange program with business schools all around the world. So even though you're based here in London, there are lots of opportunities to really expand your networks and your career horizons beyond London and beyond the UK as well.
Yeah, I saw that over 40% of your second year students exchange in their second year. So that's quite a high percentage of students going to another business school to study as well.
Absolutely. Yes, the exchange program is a really popular option because it allows students to essentially gain experience internationally, so not just here in London, which is particularly important for those who want to change location after graduation, not stay on here in the UK or in London. But it's also a great way to expand your networks as well and go and study at one of our partner schools, particularly if they have a strength in another area. So yes, there is the opportunity to really go beyond just London.
Yeah, I really see London Business School's push to be more international with having such an international class and giving so many of its students the opportunity to exchange as well. But if we could talk more about your admissions process, which I'm sure a lot of people will be interested to hear about. What exactly happens to an application in your office once it's received until the time you return a decision to applicants?
That's a good question. The mystery behind what happens in the admissions office. So we have 4 application stages. We ask that students submit their application by one of our 4 stages. Once we receive your application, it will be read by the admissions committee, who will pay particular attention to your essays, your work experience, what you've been doing previously, and they will obviously look at your reasons and rationale for wanting to come to study with us. Several things can happen at that point. We may not think you're the right fit for London Business School, or we may be very interested in you and we want to know more. If that is the case, then we will then shortlist your application for interview. And you will be interviewed by one of our alumni, not by the admissions committee themselves. And at London Business School, our alumni, as I mentioned earlier, are spread around the world. You will be interviewed in the city where you apply from and where you are based. Once you meet with the alumnus, the interview can last anything from 1 to 2 hours, really depending on the interviewer themselves. And that feedback then comes back to the admissions committee, after which we review your application in its entirety, along with the feedback from your interview. And at that point, we then make a final decision.
And would you encourage candidates to apply earlier to improve their chances?
We do encourage candidates to apply early. As you can imagine, as we go through the admissions cycle, the spaces get filled, and therefore fewer spaces become available towards the end of the 4 rounds. But we ask you to apply early, really for your own benefit, so that you are considered for the scholarships that we award you, which are only available in the first, second and third rounds. And also really so that you have enough time to then prepare for your arrival here in London. And as you can appreciate, there is lots to prepare, from accommodation to financing, applying for your visa, etc.
Okay, and I forgot perhaps the most important question is, what type of candidates is London Business School looking for?
It's a good question. The full package, really, which doesn't always exist, but we want to see strengths in all areas. There is sort of the black and white, the harder side, which is academic credentials. We want you to come from a good undergraduate institution. We want you to be able to cope with the academic rigor of the MBA. We also want you to come to us with valuable work experience. And what we mean by that is at least 3 years of professional work experience. And work experience that you think would be of benefit to others. So we want you to actually ask yourself, what can I bring to the table that my fellow classmates can learn from? What experience do I have that I could potentially share with other people? Whether that's leadership experience, whether you've perhaps worked with large budgets or teams, or you've worked across different regions and demographics. But we also want you to, on the softer side, be ambitious. We want you to be future leaders. We want you to have an impact on the way the world does business. We also want you to be comfortable in international settings and diverse environments, because we here at London Business School are incredibly international. And we also want you to be happy to work in team situations. There's a lot of the work that we do here at London Business School is in a study group format. So we want you to be comfortable to work in small teams and small groups. So I think overall these are the things we look for in our candidates, but we want you to be committed, and I think this is where the research really comes through. We want you to be sure that you know what you want out of the MBA, and we also want you to give back. We want you to be able to contribute as well. It's very much a two-way relationship.
Yeah, and on that note, I think many candidates might feel that they have 3 or 4 of the qualities you just mentioned, whether they're intellectually capable or they're ambitious or they work well in teams or across cultures. But how would you recommend that candidates communicate these qualities in their application? Could you give some tips on how they can demonstrate these qualities without sounding like they're bragging or being so direct about it? Or would you prefer that candidates are direct about it?
I think in some cases it's important to be direct and to demonstrate your strengths and your skills. I think there's a fine line in terms of the tone you are giving off. But these things are really things that you should bring out in your application. That's what the essays are there for. So you should put considerable time into writing and phrasing and rewording your essays, and perhaps even giving them to a friend or someone who knows you well to read, and just asking them the question, does this sound like me? Do I sound as though I'm being real? Because we want you to be yourself and be honest in your application essays. And going back to your question, how do candidates put these strengths across in their application essays? I think the best way to do this is by providing us with examples. If you're comfortable working in international environments, give us an example of a time when you've worked with people from different countries, or that time where you perhaps went backpacking around the world for a year. Try and give us as many examples as possible to really make your experiences come to life.
Great advice. Thank you for that. And you mentioned that you'd like to see candidates come from strong undergraduate institutions. But of course, some applicants might feel like they didn't go to as strong of a university as their peers. But how can they show that they are academically capable if they didn't go to those top tier undergraduate universities? And related to that question, I saw that your average GMAT was 700 and your range was 600 to 780. So I'm wondering if there was a minimum score there as well.
Sure. Yes. Ideally, we want you to have a strong undergraduate or postgraduate degree or qualification. What this means is that it gives us peace of mind that you will be able to cope with the academic rigor of the MBA. It is a very, very rigorous program, and we want you to do well and to pass your core and elective classes. The GMAT is another way of benchmarking your academic capability, and that's one of the reasons why we ask you to do the GMAT, because it's an indicator for us that you will be able to cope with the case studies, the quantitative components of the program, that you won't essentially fail those parts of the MBA. So yes, you mentioned our average here at London Business School. The average is around 700, 699 to the previous class. And we have a range. So the range is from about 640 to 780. And ideally, we want you to score within that range. And we want to see consistency throughout the individual scores as well. But bearing in mind that the application process is very much a holistic one, there are other components in your application which can counterbalance perhaps a below average GMAT score. So say, for example, you had a low quant score on your GMAT, but perhaps you studied economics at undergrad, or you work in banking, or you've done the ACCA course, the accounting qualification, then those things can sometimes weigh out a below average score. So we do look at applications holistically. We do look at all components, and we do weigh several components out against each other in some cases.
And finally, what 3 things would you recommend applicants to keep in mind while they're applying to LBS to improve their chances of admission?
Very good question. Work on your GMAT score, but mainly think about, before you even apply, think about whether we are the right fit for you. And what I mean by that is really go beyond just the rankings and look into what we do particularly well. There are some fantastic business schools out there, and some may be better suited to you than other business schools. So really look at what you're hoping to achieve, whether it's a career transition, whether it's a particular strength in a subject area that you're looking for, whether it's the network, and really try to incorporate this into your essays and really do your research. So one of the the biggest, I think, the most important pieces of advice I would give you is go out there and speak to the alumni, speak to the students, speak to student ambassadors, and speak to staff. Visit the school if you can. I know not everyone will have that opportunity because you might live quite far away, and we wouldn't expect you necessarily to make that one trip out to come and see us. But try to network regionally because there will be alumni close to where you live. And try to really find out about their experiences. They are the experts. They've gone through the process themselves. And I think one of the things that really stands out for us on the admissions committee is where the people have really gone above and beyond and really researched the school. And then I'd also say, really try to gain as much quality professional experience as you can to really sharpen your profile. So what I mean by that is, even though you know that you might apply to business school soon, really try to push yourself as much as you can, gain as much experience as you can, try and perhaps gain an internship if you're wanting to transition into a different industry or job function. Speak to people who are in that industry already and do as much networking you can as possible.
I think you dropped a lot of great nuggets there for our listeners. So just to repeat, to summarize what you said, work on your GMAT score and really show LBS and top business schools that you can handle the academic intensity of the program. 2, really do your research. And the best way to do that is to talk to students and alumni, because these schools, it's really about the people and the culture, and that will really come through in your essays, right? If you talk to more alumni. It's just really good advice for our listeners. Thank you for that. And if we could talk about financing the program, especially candidates from Southeast Asia, the salaries are relatively low to the cost of top MBA programs in Europe. So I was just wondering what percentage of your class gets scholarships and what your average scholarship amounts are. And of course, the next question would have to be, how can candidates improve their chances of winning one of these scholarships?
Sure. Yes, around 20% of the MBA class receives some form of scholarship. You shouldn't just rely on the scholarships, although obviously do try to strengthen your profile as much as possible. But there are other funding options available. We have recently entered into a new loan scheme with a company called Prodigy, who offer special loans to MBA students looking to pursue an MBA. That's one way of financing your MBA. There are lots of other regional, local funding opportunities. Just check with your government and check locally to see what schemes are available, or go to the British Council. There are always new loan schemes, new funding opportunities, grants that become available on a regular basis. So do keep a lookout locally. But a lot of our students use a mixture of different financing options, whether it be savings, MBA loans, and or scholarships as well. We have a large portfolio of scholarships. They are all available on our website, and they are broken down into lots of different categories. So we have scholarships for nationals of a particular country, from particular backgrounds such as military scholarships. And we also have a lot of scholarships from external donors as well. But you will be automatically considered for a scholarship when you submit your application to London Business School. The Scholarships Committee will look at your scholarship and will award a scholarship based on the strength, the merit of your original application, which leads quite nicely on to how can students best present themselves in order to receive a scholarship. Again, really work on your essays. The Scholarships Committee will be reading your original application, so they will be looking at your GMAT score. They will look at your original essays. They will look at your application, and they will see the type of experience you've had in the past. And one of the other things they will be looking for is your willingness to contribute to the school and to make an impact to the school and on business later on in life. In most cases, it's very much an ambassadorial role. So really try to work on your essays and your application and make them as strong as possible when you first apply.
I will be sure to link to your scholarship page so our listeners can see, all the different scholarships LBS has. But I was just wondering, does LBS offer need-based loans or scholarships as along with those merit scholarships?
We do offer need-based scholarships as well, yes. You would need to be earning below a certain threshold in order to be considered for one of our bursaries. But more information is available on our website as well if you are interested in receiving those.
If we can now talk about careers, and you mentioned that London Business School is a great place for students who are looking to boost or change their careers. Recently in Europe, there's been a lot of concern about, candidates I've spoken to who would love to go to a great program in Europe, but are concerned about the job market there. So what could you say to international applicants who, are concerned about getting jobs after graduating from LBS?
Yes, candidates obviously have reason to be concerned given the recent European economic crisis. But things have been improving since then, particularly for those people who wanted to switch careers. In fact, the number of people who are now switching careers has increased significantly within the last 3 years. I think it was around 52% around 3 years ago actually got into the industry or job function they were interested in working in, and that's actually now climbed to 64%. But we are really proud of our career services here at the school. We have a fantastic employment statistic. So around 92% of our students are within full-time employment within the first 3 months of graduating. You can look at our LBS employment report for a detailed breakdown of all the employment figures. We have a fantastic career services team who provide our students with support from the very first day they step foot on campus, all the way throughout their MBA, and beyond that as alumni as well. So you can always come back to LBS, even as an alumnus, if you've graduated 5 or 10 years ago for a career health check or advice or one-to-one coaching. And our career services help our students with navigating through their career. They provide our students with workshops, companies. They bring companies onto campus to present to our students on various different industries and job functions. And they provide our students with career counselling, coaching, and guidance with regard to CV writing or interview skills or networking skills. So there's a lot of information there, a lot of help and support for our students throughout their MBA.
Great. And how long can graduates stay in the UK with the student visa they got to attend LBS?
At the moment, and please do check the UK border agency because things do change and information is updated on a regular basis. But on the Tier 4 student visa, students can stay in the UK up to 4 months after they graduate in order to find a job. But we have quite a long list of employers who work with London Business School who are actually qualified to sponsor our alumni under the Tier 2 visa. So once they are on the Tier 2 visa, they can actually stay in London or in the UK for up to 3 years, and then extend that as well if possible after that time. So yes, 4 months in order to look for a job, and then if they are sponsored, they can move onto the Tier 2 visa after that time.
What is the difference between a Tier 1 and a Tier 2 visa?
The Tier 1 visa, I believe, is the a visa that supports entrepreneurs. So the government has recently launched the Tier 1 visa to support people who want to start their own businesses here in London, which is a fantastic scheme, and a scheme that we are involved in here at London Business School as well.
Great. And what is the best way for candidates to contact students and alumni of your program to really learn more?
The best way of contacting students here at London Business School is to go onto our website and check out our student ambassador page, which will give you a brief bio of all of our student ambassadors who are either in the first or second year of their MBA. It will give you a detailed description of what they did before the MBA, what they're currently doing now, what sort of activities they're involved in at the school, and what they hope to do after graduation. And by reading this, you should hopefully find someone who comes from a similar background as you, or who's involved in something that you want to be involved in. And you can just reach out to them directly, and they're more than happy to take your questions.
Great. I'll be sure to link to that site that you mentioned. And I forgot to ask this question, but I'm wondering if when London Business School students go out into that job market, if you're hearing feedback from employers about the type of businessmen and women they are.
Oh, whether our graduates share a common trait or quality.
Yeah.
I recently read an article. I can give you more information afterwards. I can't remember where the article was. It was written in a newspaper, but it quoted employers who mentioned that alumni and students, recent graduates of the school, are nice. So I think that's very true. I think people who study here, students, our alumni, are genuinely nice people. They possess the soft skills. And I don't know whether that's something that we've instilled in them, or that something that they've learnt or acquired or built on throughout the MBA, or whether it's just students that we attract. It's just students that come to study with us, but they have fantastic personal soft skills, and they're able to really build rapport with people. They're fantastic networkers. So I think that's something that our students do very well here at the school.
I love that. They're nice. I love that.
Nice.
Yes. So Nadia, I know you travel around the world recruiting candidates for the program, and is there anything that you just wish more candidates knew about LBS?
Yes, there is. One thing I'm asked all the time when I'm traveling or when I'm recruiting or speaking to students is I think the misconception that we are purely a finance school, or we're purely a business school for finance professionals or management consultants, which is totally not true. One thing we really pride ourselves on is diversity, not just culturally or internationally, but professionally. And the MBA is open to really people from all different walks of life. We really value professional diversity. We think it adds a really nice flavour to the classroom. So when you, for example, are allocated to a study group, we ensure that your study groups of around 6 to 7 students are as diverse as possible. So you won't have 2 investment bankers or 2 engineers or 2 consultants in the same study group. They are really, really diverse, and everyone brings a different perspective to the table, not just in terms of how they do things in their industry, but also how they do things in their own country as well. So please don't think that you are not a good fit for the program because you don't fall into consulting or finance. The program really is open to everyone. We've had an ex-professional football player, a jewelry designer, a captain of an oil tanker, a Bollywood actress on the program. So it really is open to everyone.
And a personal question for you, Nadia. What is your favorite part about working at London Business School?
Gosh, what is my favorite part about working at London Business School? I think for me, as a member of staff, I've been here for around 3 years now, is the fact that it's very much a family atmosphere. Um, and we often, every Thursday, we all sit together in the Nash Lounge, which is where the canteen is. And the whole place gets cleared out, and we celebrate what is called Sundowners. And it's a chance for the whole community, staff, students, Masters in Management students, finance students, Sloan students, to all come together and just let their hair down. And it's a moment where everyone is just there. There's no separation between staff and student or different degree programs. And I think it's just such a great atmosphere here, and it's just a fantastic place to work, I think.
That's great. I wish, well, if I'm ever in London, maybe I can sneak into one of those sessions.
Please do, you're a guest.
But finally, MBA candidates are often asked in interviews, what 3 words would your friends use to describe you? And I just want to turn that around and ask you to leave us with 3 words that describe the London Business School MBA.
Gosh, 3 words to describe the London Business School MBA. I need more like 3 hours to describe the London Business School MBA. I would say rigorous, firstly. Secondly, I would say introspective, because it's a quite introspective process, and you learn a lot about yourself along the way. And thirdly, I would say fun. It's a lot of fun.
Great, Nadia. Thank you so much for being on the program.
Thank you. It was good to be here.